Senegal, Africa, the door of no return. From these shores, millions of Africans went across oceans and continents, battlefields, racial barriers, and constitutional divides. In the late 1820s, there were 2 million men, women, and children living in bondage in the United States. In the 50 years since the Revolution, every northern state had outlawed slavery. It had once seemed likely that it would disappear in the South as well, but no more. The invention of the cotton gin had led to a massive increase in cotton production, making slavery indispensable to both the South and the North.
It's actually quite astounding how deeply entrenched it was in the nation's political and economic life. What is seen as this sort of idiosyncratic, peculiar Southern institution actually had an enormous economic significance in the national economy of the United States.
Slaves were the single largest financial asset in the entire American economy, worth more than all manufacturing, all railroad, steamship lines, and other transportation systems put together. The only thing in the American economy worth more as simply a financial asset was the land itself, and no one really quite knows how to value, North America.
The only voices advocating the abolition of slavery were black. Their frustration was growing, and some of them were becoming more militant. But no one in power was listening. As of yet, no white Americans could imagine turning millions of dollars worth of slaves into millions of black compatriots.
When I was growing up, policemen walked around communities, and a white policeman, single white policeman, could walk around a neighborhood and tell you to move off the corner and so forth. And you did. You know, you'd be standing there making noise, singing doo-wop or whatever. It'd be one white policeman and would say, okay, it's too late, why should y'all go home? And you went home. It never occurred to you that you would question the authority of this policeman. But when you shoot a black kid, it's like, wait a minute, so that policeman coming around the corner doesn't look the same anymore. It's like, who are you to tell me what to do? Why aren't you locking up these white people that are messing with these black people? I mean, that's the hypocrisy that people see, and that's the hypocrisy that people respond to. People came out in large numbers.
I walked downtown, just walking downtown. Cops come up to me. Hey, you, what you doing down here? Get up against the wall. Where's your identification? Identify yourself. Yeah, what you got to talk to me like that? You ain't white. That's right. That's right. That's right, brother.
There was an increasing skepticism about the commitment of white Americans to any kind of racial equality at all. Younger people are saying you're not moving fast enough.
Congress passes the most sweeping civil rights bill ever to be written into the law. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is signed at the White House by President Johnson.
But even as Johnson was enshrining civil rights into what he called the books of law, he knew that the response to the measure would challenge not only his presidency, but the entire nation.
It was a game changer, the creation of a new America. The Civil Rights Bill, it lays out all of these divisions in American society, whether it's social divisions, cultural divisions, racial divisions. Suddenly, you can't escape from them anymore.
It completely unravels the entire social system of segregation in the South, the very foundation upon which the quote-unquote Southern way of life is built. It's revolutionary.
90% of all the white people in the Deep South thought, oh my God, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 means what? What do you mean you're going to tell me who I have to serve? They're going to be in the same place as me?
President Reagan signed a stiff new anti-drug law authorizing $1.7 billion to fight drug abuse.
The American people want their government to get tough and to go on the offensive. And that's exactly what we intend.
From the outset, the war on drugs had relatively little to do with genuine concern about people struggling with drug addiction and drug abuse.
This is your brain on drugs.
And much to do with politics.
Just say no.
Racial politics. Using racially coded, get tough political appeals on issues of crime and welfare in order to appeal to poor and working class whites who are anxious about and resentful of many of the gains of African Americans in the civil rights movement. When crack hit the streets, the Reagan administration seized on this development, actually hiring staff whose job it was to publicize inner city crack babies, crack kids, crack dealers, in an effort to bolster public support for a drug war they had already declared.
The plan, an all too familiar one. It's another night, another crack raid.
There was such a frenzy associated with the fear of crack. It served the function of deflecting attention away from problems of poverty, of joblessness in these communities, to crack.
Police are now arresting more than 35 people a day on drug charges, but almost all of these arrests are taking place in black neighborhoods.
Even at the height of the crack epidemic, the majority of crack users were white. But once it became sensationalized in the media as a black drug, a wave of punitiveness swept over. We saw a whole generation of young black men in particular being swept into prisons and jails.
Well, when your gate opens up, you will strip down for the officer.
Before the war on drugs, the most severe sentence for drug possession under federal law was 1 year. Congress and state legislators began passing ever harsher mandatory minimum sentences for minor drug offenses. Prisons exploded almost overnight.
of stuff that can make us do the wrong thing instead of the positive thing.
It's out here. It's out here. It's not hard to get in. Who do you think we get it from, though?
Right.
You think y'all think about that?
And people have been saying this for years. Why is it a liquor store on every corner in the hood? Why is it a pawn shop on every corner of the hood selling guns? Or you can just go, you know what I mean?
They bring everything. They just like they brought us here, you know what I'm saying? They bringing drugs here, they bringing alcohol, you know what I mean? They bringing guns, you know what I mean? So shit, what can we do but to use these assets, you know what I'm saying?
Even a cat like Biggie says back in the days our parents used to take care of us. Look at them now. They're even blinking scared of us. If I wasn't in the rap game, I probably have a key knee deep in the crack game. Because the streets is a short stop. Either you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. That's a profound sociological analysis of prevailing forms of oppression.
So today is the 150th anniversary of the beginning of the Civil War, the day that the first shots were fired. And it's safe to say that we've come a long way since then. That doesn't mean that our society is equal. In fact, if you want to know where African Americans really stand in America today, let me give you some statistics. More African American men are in prison or jail, on probation or parole, than were enslaved in 1850 before the Civil War began. For black males in their 20s, 1 in every 8 is in prison or jail on any given day. And as a consequence of jail time, 13% of black men are unable to vote. While the current unemployment number nationally is at 8.8%, for African Americans, it's at 15.5%. And that's not including the underemployed and the discouraged who've simply stopped looking. So how do you explain 150 years later where it went wrong? Here to discuss it with me is Christopher Chambers, blogger at Nat Turner's Revenge and lecturer at Georgetown University. Chris, thanks so much for being here tonight. Obviously, there's a lot of statistics that you could point to. It's a large discussion to have, but I think that it's really so powerful, especially considering this anniversary, to think that there are more black men within the prison system here in the U.S. than ever than were enslaved back in 1850. I mean, how do you put two and two together? It's a scary statistic.
Well, the equation hasn't changed in 150 years or 250 years or 50 or 80 years when black men were on chain gangs and serving private free enterprise interests and the states, doing slave labor on chain gangs.
And we do have, let's not forget, the largest incarceration system in the world. This is something that's very profitable. Yeah. This is something that also provides a lot of jobs. So it definitely is in someone's interest to keep it going. But if we look at it as a whole, because as we said, prison is just one part of it. After that, you can't get a job. You don't have the same education opportunities. After that, 13% of black men are disenfranchised. They can no longer vote. They're no longer a full citizen here. So, but how do you rise above that? It seems like this vicious cycle. Is there some way to change it?
That's the ultimate question. We've been searching for that for 40 years, back and forth, since people really start to really take a slice at this level. I really don't know. I mean, a lot of it is going to be, a comprehensive behavior change from African Americans' point of view, but a structural change in terms of the country and attitudes around us. And that goes whether you're, and I would say white people have to understand that is a condition and a mental condition and a historical condition that they really don't have to deal with and never had. Whether you're a WASP blue blood or you came, off the boat at Ellis Island, you always kind of knew where you were and who you were in this country. African Americans have never had that. So it's not a victim mentality, it's a lost mentality, and there is a difference. And if we get over that lost mentality, I think that we've gone a long way to curing this.
And I think we're also seeing...
Would you say acquiring the presidency would be the black man's greatest accomplishment in this country? You know what I would say?
What's that?
You know what I would say is the black man's greatest accomplishment in this country? Okay, you're white?
Yes.
Okay, tell me how you would have reacted to walking into a train station and seeing a colored waiting room, or a colored restroom, or a colored water fountain, or going shopping downtown, getting hungry as hell, and knowing that you could not walk in to that Walgreens over there and sit at the counter and get a hamburger. And then enduring that for decades and generations, and still coming out of that with a love for this country, still being willing to put on a uniform and fight for this country, and not killing somebody along the way. That, to me, is the black man's greatest accomplishment in this country.
If an officer stops you, promise me.
Bruce Springsteen's American Skin, 41 shots, inspired by the New York police shooting of Amadou Diallo. That was on February 4th, 1999. Diallo was killed in a hail of police bullets after police officers mistook his wallet for a gun as he was trying to enter his own home. 4 officers fired 41 times, fatally killing the 23-year-old Ghanaian immigrant. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
Well, nearly 13 years later to the day, there's a new Amadou Diallo, and his name is Ramerly Graham. Last Thursday, he was shot at close range in his parents' apartment in the Bronx after being chased into the house by narcotics detectives. According to a recently released surveillance video, the officers followed Graham to the second-floor apartment, knocked, and then kicked open the door. They found Graham in the bathroom, where moments later, they shot him dead. A key witness to the shooting, Graham's grandmother, Patricia Hartley, was allegedly taken into police custody, held against her will for several hours, and forced to give a statement about what happened. Police Commissioner Ray Kelly initially said Graham, quote, appeared to be armed, but no weapon was ever recovered. Kelly also said they found marijuana in the home and think Graham may have been trying to flush some down the toilet when cornered by the cops. This was the 3rd time in a week that a member of the police had killed a suspect. The NYPD is coming under criticism not only for shooting Graham, but also its broader stop-and-frisk policy, which critics say disproportionately targets people of color. On Monday, about 500 protesters rallied in the Bronx, New York, to condemn the police treatment of black youth. This is Jamel Mims of the Stop Mass Incarceration Network.
From the stop-and-frisk policy, where Ramerly was brutally targeted, ran up in his home, and shot point blank. This is not about finding criminals. This is a system. Which you are complicit in. That criminalizes youth that look like me. We are not criminals.
The black people that are here in the United States now are not African. I know that. The term African American is what the white man has pinned on them. Basically, I feel to try to keep hiding their true identity. They want them to think they're African, so they won't find out who they really are. So I know, and I wanted to clarify that I know the black people here are the true Hebrew Israelites. I know that. So let me just get that out there and clarify that. Also, something interesting that some people may not know is that actually Africans, they don't like the black race that's over here. They don't like them. They hate them. And the only thing conclusion that I can come to is that because the Africans know that they're the true Hebrew Israelites. They know they're the chosen people of God. So therefore they hate them. That's the only the only conclusion that I can come to. So I just wanted to clarify that I do know that they are not African. Just because the white man got them from the continent that we now know as Africa doesn't make them African. So, like I said, just because they were brought from the continent of Africa doesn't make them African. And I wanted to read something. It's from a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu. And if you can get this book, I would encourage it because it's really interesting. There is a paragraph, here on page 84. It says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. So that shows you right there exactly how the Hebrew Israelites got into Africa. And it just reiterates my point about them not being African just because that's where they were at. And also one other thing is, it's not coming from the Bible, it's coming from the Bible dictionary. And under Ham, it says, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. Now this is the key point. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So anybody who wants to try to say that the black race, they come from Ham, that's not true. That is not true. He was a progenitor of all the other dark races, just not the Hebrew Israelites.
What does that God look like? Uh-oh. The reality of it is when he came here, he didn't look like me. So what am I going to do about that? I'm going to make him look like me. So for hundreds of years, we've been telling you, and now you have to keep in mind that we took away any other God that you might have through force, through fear, through pain, through any means necessary. So now I'm going to give you a God, but I'm going to do that in a way that it's going to further me. So I'm going to give you a God that looks like me, so that when you bow down to that God, you're bowing down to me. Because the reality is, the Bible tells us what Jesus looked like when he walked here. The Bible tells us what he's going to look like when he comes back. We have taken that and changed it. You remember when Jesus went to Egypt? He hid in Egypt. The people in Egypt, honey, they're not white people. How could he hide that? See, so that we've done that. We've given your people a God that looks like me, so that you don't have any qualm about bowing down to me. See, because this is the image of God. I don't know of any sin that we've committed that's greater than that.